everybody. Welcome to our Phenomenati micro webinar. Today, I am joined by my colleagues Joel Jacobs and Dave Johnson. Today we're going to talk about this recent zero-day exploit that occurred regarding Microsoft SharePoint that was targeting Microsoft SharePoint. And Dave, please feel free to jump in here because you and I were just talking about this. Apparently, this was an exploit that was found already, was known since May.
Yes, I mean, the research shows that this was something that had been demonstrated in a controlled environment at a Berlin hacking contest. And then, of course, this got into the wild and utilized by structured hackers to tackle SharePoint servers.
So, here we are with 0 days are always a challenge, right? Because the whole point of them is that there's no patch for them at this point in time. And even when we're identifying them, as you've noted here, Dave, at this hackathon, it still doesn't mean that there's a patch coming out to protect against this stuff. So, the question here, and Joel, I'll ask you this in just a second, is what should companies be doing to adapt their incident response and threat detection to better protect against these zero-day attacks? I mean, I know for one thing, there is now this advanced endpoint detection and response capability that has the ability to do behavioral analysis. And that, that can help you to then execute on a zero-day playbook. Certainly, there is now a need to be able to use machine language or AI-driven analysis, given all of the data that is being collected. But what else can companies do? Is that the best they can do, or are you just crossing your fingers when it comes to 0 days at this point?
The most important thing, and it's been true for years, maybe decades, is to keep up on hygiene. A patch for a vulnerability isn't useful unless you've deployed the patch. So making sure that you understand what the circumstances are, paying attention in the market, or subscribing to threat intelligence or vulnerability management and hunting, all those services can help you understand and whether there's exploits out in the wild. If you're not keeping up in systems with the concern about the vulnerability, then you're going to leave the vulnerability open, available to bad actors until you do. In this one, as I understand it, there was a patch that was deployed, and then there was another exploit that went around the patch. So patching the first time was important. Patching the second time was important to close out the vulnerability that remained. Almost every update to every piece of software has a security improvement in it. That's a bit of a truism, but it is not far from fact that you need to be paying attention to closing vulnerabilities, even in your security software.
Yep, no, that's absolutely true. And I think, to the point about some of this behavioral analysis, if you had been aware of this, as you said, educate yourself or aware that this thing had been found, you could be better monitoring your SharePoint environment, even if you don't have the patches in place. Dave, we talked a little bit about zero-day attacks and how to protect yourself kind of generally from zero-day attacks. But these, in this particular case, it's going after content management systems. What should companies be doing to better protect those content management systems, or to be prepared for this type of attack in a content management system?
I think, much like what Joel was saying about, just proper hygiene, it's having a structured policy on data retention and following that, not leaving a lot of old historic data just sitting out there on the vine for somebody to come along and grab, or even to get hit with crypto or encryption. There's so many things. It's sometimes people hate IT when they come out with a policy that says, hey, this hasn't been touched in 3 years, we're going to just archive it out. That's always a best practice because you're just leaving stuff out there to both clutter your day-to-day productivity, but you're also leaving it out there on the vine for threats that may come into the environment. SharePoint also is an environment that, depending on how the SharePoint administrator has configured it, and how the policy is in your environment, you might get hundreds and hundreds of sites, depending on how your organization handles it. Most will say, listen, if you want a new SharePoint site created, put in a ticket, put in a request to IT. They'll make sure it's set up properly. But the default out of the box is just anybody can create a site anytime they want. And that becomes almost like a ghost IT matter where there's just important data sitting unregulated, unmanaged, unwatched on a regular basis. So the SharePoint administrator should also be looking for that sort of stuff, checking the frequency and usage of different sites in their environment. If they see something that hasn't been really touched in a long time, they should start to reach out to the users of those sites and say, listen, you guys set this up for sales kickoff 2 years ago. Is this still active, or can we tombstone this into tertiary storage for historical reference? But keeping it here on the expensive storage is just creating exposure for situations like 0 days like this one.
Yeah, I think there's already been evidence that threat actors have been encrypting files using this vulnerability, putting ransomware on compromised systems. So the more sites you have out there, the more you got to be aware of, and the more you got to stay on top of. Joel, one of the things that I know is going to come back to all of these IT departments is from the board level and the executive level. They're going to be nervous about, has this been patched effectively? Are we sure that we're safe? What can IT do to make the board and the executive level feel confident that that these things are being addressed, both this past problem and any kind of future problems that may be coming up?
The board should be interested in specifically how it affects enterprise risk, not only the specifics of an individual patch or a 0-day attack. There's been pervasive and alarming 0-day attacks over the years, and if boards are paying attention only to that vulnerability and whether it was closed, chances are they're missing the point of having a comprehensive approach to cybersecurity enterprise risk. And so they should be interested in the current events and closing out that specific vulnerability if it's relevant to their business. But they should also be more interested in having a methodical approach to managing vulnerabilities and maintaining risk reduction and mitigations. So even if imagine if you had the same vulnerability but no patch available. There are other techniques that the InfoSec or cyber team or IT team can put into place to reduce the likelihood of exploitation. But they need to look at it in a comprehensive way. That is not just the patch velocity. It's not just following through on the specifics of this individual vulnerability and its remediation. It should be aligned to how do we manage vulnerabilities in general? How do we triage the patches and improvements? How do we measure the risk that's appropriate to this particular problem in our business? Because sometimes an individual business may have no exposure to the vulnerability, and yet there's panic in the press. So I think it's a matter of putting it into a comprehensive framework to manage the vulnerabilities, manage the risk reduction, and maintain the focus on the things that are most aligned to the greatest risks to the specific business. And the board should be taking that lens, not the line item geek lens, to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, the best way to deal with these 0-day attacks since there is no real technical control, is on the administrative side, or potentially the physical side, but most likely administrative controls that you can put in place that could help to protect you versus when you don't necessarily have a technical control that can solve the problem.
Right.
So thanks, guys, for taking the time to talk about this today. For those of you who are watching, if you do need any assistance with protecting yourself against these types of zero-day attacks, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at phenomenati.com, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.